Namaskar everyone and welcome to the 28th day of our Ramayana series. Lakshmi Natha Samarambham Nathayamuna Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Yo Nityam Achyutapadam Bhuja Yukma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmad Gurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye आपदामपहर्तारं दातारं सर्वसम्पदां लोकाभिरामं श्रीरामं भूयो भूयो नमाम्यहम् यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारी परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकं कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम् वेदवेद्ये परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदप्राचेत साधासीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मना. So with prayers at the lotus feet of Sri Ramachandra and Acharya, let us take up our topic for today. So yesterday in the satsang we had seen how Maricha was visited by Ravana the second time, and this time when he came, Ravana was very forceful and very insistent that Maricha has to help him. Now Maricha tried to caution this Ravana. In the 37th Sarga, this is the Valmiki Shloka where Maricha explains the characteristic of Rama. He says, Ramo vigrahavan dharmaha sadhu satya parakramaha raja sarvasya lokasya devanam iva vasavaha. Just as Indra is the is the king of all the devatas, this Rama is the king of entire world. He is the very embodiment of righteousness, of dharma. So if you say that dharma has taken form in this world, then it is Rama. He is somebody who is always having truthfulness by his side, and he is very parakrami. He is valorous person, and such is the nature of Rama. Now, when Maricha says all these things, then Ravana is interested. He says, how do you know so much about Rama? So Maricha explains how the first time when he had gone to disturb the yajna of Vishwamitra, that time Rama was a young boy of less around say 12 years old. And in that age also, he was so great, such was his skill in archery, that he had hit an arrow and this Maricha had been thrown into the ocean far, far away. So that was the first time. Then Maricha says, when they came to Vanavasa and he was in Dandakaranya, at one point of time, I took on an animal form, and with some other Rakshasas, all of us in animal form were roaming around in the forests. One day I happened to see this Rama, and I went up to him and I just brushed him with my body. At that time, he kicked me so hard that again I came and fell back into Lanka where I am. And then, ever since that time, it has been very difficult for me. The minute anybody says something starting, any word starting with the syllable Ra, I get scared. Like that, he explains his fear of Rama. And here, Maricha says another thing. When he was a young boy itself, he was so powerful. Now, when he has this Sita next to him in the Grihastha form, this Rama is even more powerful. So he says, Aprameyam hitattejo yasya sa janakatmaja natvam samarthatam hartum Rama chapashrayam vane shrayam vane. So that Rama, whose wife is the daughter of Janaka, he has so much tejas. It is, you just cannot imagine that. And you cannot steal Sita from such a person as long as he is standing there safeguarding her. And his tejas is also there. And that is like a firewall. It will not let you penetrate and reach to Sita. So, O Ravana, give up this foolhardy plan that you have made and don't covet this Sita. And yet, Ravana, as we already said, he is blinded by lust and he is so angry. And now he is even more angry because Maricha is trying to say that Rama is so superior that you cannot do anything to him. So then Ravana gets even more angry and he tells Maricha, I have not come here to ask you for any advice. I have not come to take your opinion about this. I am ordering you that you have to give in to my plan. And if you don't obey me, then I will kill you. That is the ultimatum that Ravana gives to Maricha. Now Maricha replies. He says, Nivaryamanah tu maya hiteshina namrasyase vakyam idam nishachara pareta kalpa hi gatayusho nara hitam na grinnanti suhradpi iritam. Because I want your welfare, I am trying to dissuade you. I am trying to take your mind away from this plan, O Nishachara, O Rakshasa. But I think you don't like these words of mine. They are whatever I'm telling, it is very unpleasant to you. This is just as people who are about to die, they become like a corpse. And corpse does not listen. It cannot hear what other people are telling. And in that same way, for you also, it looks like your lifespan is coming to an end. And that is the reason why you are not able to take the good advice which I am giving you. So says Maricha. He is likening Ravana to a corpse. So he is predicting in a way that Ravana's end is coming soon. And he then decides that, okay, now if Maricha does not listen to Ravana, he is going to get killed. And he knows that if he listens to Ravana and goes and plays as per that plan of Ravana, then also he is going to get killed. So he has really no alternative. So both of them travel by the Pushpaka Vimana. They go to Dandakaranya forest where Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana are there. And what is their plan? This Maricha, with all his Mayavi Shakti, converts himself, he transforms himself into a beautiful deer, which is golden, which has all precious stones studded on its horns, which has a very colorful tail, and it's very beautiful to look at. He turns himself into that form, and then he starts running around the ashrama. Ravana is hiding somewhere behind. Now, when this beautiful deer keeps flitting in and around the bushes of the ashrama, Sita, who has come there to pluck flowers, she sees this and she's mesmerized by that. She's so thrilled looking at this beautiful deer. She calls out to Rama and Lakshmana to come and see this beautiful deer. And she says, see, look how beautiful it is. And it will be so nice if we could have this captured and it would be staying in our ashram. And when we go back to Ayodhya after our Vanavas is over, we can keep this deer as a pet with us in the palace. And it will be so beautiful. And I will love to have this, she says. Now, Lakshmana is very perceptive. The minute he looks at it, he says, Shankamana tutam drishtva Lakshmano Ramam abravit. With Shanka, with doubt, Lakshmana tells Rama, Tamevenam aham manye maricham rakshasam mrigam. Immediately, he just directly pinpoints. He says, I think this is Maricha, the demon, who has come in the form of the deer. How is he able to gauge that? It is told here that Lakshmana had just observed this deer running around. And then he had noticed one peculiar thing. There were some other deer also in that place, but none of them were coming close to this deer. Now, normally, whenever there is one animal running around somewhere, other animals of its species, they will also be playing around that and they will come up to it and they will all frolic around together. But in this case, he had noticed that other deer were coming up to this deer, golden deer, looking at it, smelling it, and going far away as if they have been repelled. So, observing all these things, Lakshmana has made up his mind. He says, I am pretty sure that this is Maricha who has come in the form of this deer. But Sita is mesmerized totally. She wants that deer. However, what she does, she says that this, I know that I should not be asking so much for this, but I can't help it. It's so beautiful. And then she just leaves. She says all this in front of Rama and she leaves the decision to Rama. Now, many times people say that Sita was very stubborn and she said, no, no, you have to get me that deer. I have never asked you for anything else in this world. Only now I'm asking and all that. That is not there in Valmiki Ramayana. She just expresses her desire, strong love, desire for that deer, and she leaves the decision to Rama. Now, in Valmiki Ramayana, the way it is described, Rama is also taken in by that exotic looking deer. And he also thinks that what is this? It's so wonderful, this deer. And he is now kind of giving in to Sita's desire. And he thinks from his point of view, suppose, like Sita says, it is just a deer. then I will have a thrill of hunting it, of catching it and bringing it to the ashram. Or if it tries to escape and it is difficult to capture it, at least I can hunt it down, and that deer skin can be a beautiful thing for us to use in our ashram. Because as you know, in those times, all these people living in the forest, the tapasvis, those who do dhyana and all, they would use the deer skin and sit on that as an asana. And either I can get the live deer or I can get the skin of that deer. And suppose by any chance, as Lakshmana is pointing out, if it is Maricha, then it is my duty to kill the Rakshasa. So either way, I am not going to lose anything. So let me go and hunt this deer. That is the decision that Rama takes. So he decides, I will go behind the deer. Now that deer comes close by. As Rama comes near it, he takes his sword, he takes his bow and arrow, and he starts going. As he goes near the deer, it runs far away. Then, when it waits for some time, as he comes closer there, it again goes far away. Like that, it leads him far, far away from that ashrama. Now, before Rama went, however, because Lakshmana had told that it is Maricha and like that, Rama is still cautious. He tells Lakshmana that you please stay here with Sita and make sure that you are always with her. For any reason, you do not go away from here, leaving her alone. And with that cautious word to Lakshmana, with that warning to Lakshmana, Rama runs behind the deer. Now that deer leads Rama on a merry chase all through the forest. It keeps appearing, disappearing, and all that. Why? Because after all, it is Maricha, it is the Mayavi. He can appear, he can disappear, he can do all kinds of things. And finally, Rama realizes that, okay, this is not any ordinary deer, and he is not able to catch hold of it. So he says, okay, let me at least capture the skin of that deer. And so he hits an arrow at that deer. The minute the arrow strikes, this deer assumes the real form. Who is that deer? It is none other than Maricha. So he assumes his real form as the Rakshasa Maricha. And at that moment, when he is about to die, now Rama's arrow has struck him, he is dying. And in that moment, it is said he remembers the instructions of Ravana. Now, what was his intention? He brought Rama away so that Rama will not be there in the ashrama, and Ravana can then make an entry and kidnap Sita. But Lakshmana is also there now. Maricha has seen that Lakshmana has stayed back. Now, the next part of their plan, that Lakshmana also must be pulled away from that place. Only then Ravana can make an entry. So, Maricha remembers Ravana's instructions, and in that moment of death, he calls out in a loud voice. He shrieks out very loudly so that his voice carries right up to the ashrama. And he calls out imitating the voice of Rama. That was another power that he had, his Mayavi Shakti. He says, Ha Sita, Ha Lakshmana. He calls out in that moment of death. And the minute he calls out like that, then he gives up his life. He's dead. He's no more. And in that minute, Rama realizes that what Lakshmana told was correct. This is indeed the Rakshasa Maricha. And if he has done all this, there's definitely a sinister plan behind this. And understanding the gravity of the situation, he immediately rushes back to the ashrama. So this is where we will stop for today. But what is it that we can learn from this? So, the way Maricha told Ravana that Grihastha Rama is more powerful than Brahmachari Rama. So, Maricha had witnessed the power, the strength of Rama on two occasions. First, when Rama was Brahmachari, when he was a young boy under the guidance of Vishwamitra Rishi. And then in the Dandakaranya forest, when Rama is now married to Sita. And that is why Maricha is making the statement. So, what does that tell us? That indeed, it is because of the radiance of Devi, the Tejas of Devi. She is the one who brings that Tejas to the power of the Lord. So the combination of both of them is definitely going to be more powerful. So that is why Maricha is warning Ravana that when I was attacked by the Brahmachari Rama itself, I had such a bad experience. Now, when he is Grihastha Rama with Sita next to him, he is invincible. So don't get into this thing of challenging him at all. And yet, Ravana does not listen. We have heard people telling this, isn't it? That when our time is bad, when we are going towards the path of destruction, then our buddhi gets clouded over. Often they say, Vinasha kale viparita buddhi. So when the time of our vinasha comes close, our buddhi turns, in a nonsensical manner. So it turns totally wrong. And that is what is happening to Ravana. He's although Maricha is giving him so much good advice, Ravana is just not listening. So he's getting on his own path to destruction now. Now, Maricha, we said, he realized that for him, death is inevitable. If he defied Ravana, Ravana would kill him. If he agreed to Ravana and he went, he knows that definitely this time, 2 times already Rama has spared him. This time he's not going to be spared. He knows it is death for him at the hands of Rama also. What does he choose then? He decides, if at all I have to die, although he is a Rakshasa, right? He now has the sense, the good sense to decide that when death is inevitable, it is better that I should die at the hands of Rama than at the hands of Ravana. In fact, some commentators say that at that moment when Maricha died calling out to Sita and Lakshmana, because he was shot by the very hands of Lord Rama, and because he called out to Sita and Lakshmana, it was noticed that a flame from that body of Maricha moved out and merged into the body of Rama. That is told in some versions of the Ramayana. So Maricha took the right decision. He anyway had to die. But rather than if he had died at the hands of Ravana, there was nothing for him. But dying at the hands of the Lord, he got a good gati in the future. So that is what we can learn from Maricha's death. Now, I said that the golden deer, Lakshmana observed that other deer in the forest, they came near, but then they ran far away. Why? Because animals have this ability. They can smell that this deer is not one of us. So that sense of those animals is actually in many ways far advanced than our human senses that we have. Now, I told that Sita made one statement at the time when she was expressing her desire for that golden deer. She says one thing. She leaves the decision to Rama, but she has already told in so many ways that she wants that deer very badly, isn't it? So at that time, when she's saying, she makes this statement. She says, Kama vrittam idam raudram strinam asadrisham matam vapusha tu asya satvasya vismayo janito mama. Tradition says, it is told traditionally that this kind of wanting something very badly for themselves without any control over their mind is unbefitting. It is not good quality for women. And yet that deer's beautiful body is inducing this curiosity in me. This is what Sita said to Rama, and then she waited quietly to see what he would say. So when we listen to this statement of Sita's, she's saying that everybody tells that women should not be like this. They should not have an a strong desire and express that and be insistent on getting that fulfilled. So sometimes we may think that what is this? Always, whenever we see everywhere, there are rules for women only. In our shastras also so many rules are told for women, and then elders always keep telling that you as a woman you should be like this, you should be like that. So there are people who in today's times they say patriarchy, it is all the oppression of the women at the hands of the men, and so on. And culture, our culture is like that, our Indian culture is like that, and so on. So we may wonder that why all these rules are told. The reality is that in our Sanatan Dharma lifestyle, lot of importance is there for the unit of the family, isn't it? Our entire samaja, our entire society is based on the soundness of the family unit. It's only now that we are seeing that there are what you say nuclear families, and even in nuclear families there is hardly any emotion and relation between the people there. But in actually in our system of life, it was that this family was a joint family. There were so many people all living together with great cooperation and love and affection. And if that family has to function in the right way, it is invariably the women who play an important role. If the women in the family are following good behavior, if they have strong ethical and moral values, if they are, good natured, then they will be able to cooperate with each other, and that kind of a family will flourish. If they are able to pass on these good qualities, these good behaviors to their children, then those children become very good, respectable citizens of the country. And then, if that family is a good, well knit family and they have all the right values, then, like this, all the families that make up the society, then that society is a cultured and refined and good society. So that is why it is told that women have such an important role there. It is not that some rules have to be imposed by the men on the women, they are to be oppressed. It is not like that. Ultimately, we know, even now we see, how much ever we may have moved into a state of equality and all that, we know that ultimately it is the mother who shapes to a large extent the outlook of the child. So it is very important that women should be having the right kind of standards, they should be having the right kind of behavior, so that there is no problem in the society. We have seen, even now we do continue to see, that in families where the women are ill tempered, where the women are angry and irritable, where the women are always plotting and making schemes to bring other people down, we know how those kind of families suffer. So if the woman has a positive mindset and she is of the kind who will encourage sattvic behavior, then those families flourish. And families in which the women have a rajasic tamasic bent of mind, where they are only focused on fulfilling their own selfish desires, and they are not bothered about what happens to other people, then those kind of families do end up being not so well off in terms of their development. So that is why it is told that women have to be very having particular qualities and avoiding certain things. So this statement of Sita, where she's telling, so clearly she's telling that having this kind of uncontrolled wanting for something is not good for women. And we know ultimately when Sita exhibited this behavior, she may not have openly said to Rama and insisted that stubbornly that I want that deer, but she made it very clear to him. And being the loving husband that he is, and because he had also a strong desire for that, to see what was that deer all about, so ultimately it ended in a lot of hardship and trouble to all of them. So even Rama got lured by the deer's beauty. Many times this is explained to show us how when somebody's time is bad, when the kala is bad, then even the best person can make the wrong judgment, can take the wrong decisions, and things can go wrong of that. Right? Somewhere in the Mahabharata, they tell that Rama, he is so educated. He's such a jnani. He knows everything. He has studied so much. He is well aware of everything. And yet, even he, although he knows theoretically that it is impossible for there to be such a golden deer in the world, but looking at it, he got lured. So, when one's kala is bad, even the best person's brain can get deranged. So that if it is for Rama, then imagine our condition. So we must always make sure that wherever possible, if there is something which appears too good to be true, then we must understand that it is not going to be true. It is a falsehood only. You've seen how people get carried away with so many Ponzi schemes and all, which promise them a lot of money. Is it logical? Is it possible that you will invest a small amount and you will get so much more in return? That's not a natural thing in the world. So if something is there which sounds miraculous, it is not going to be miraculous. It is just going to be a falsehood. It's going to be a scam. So we must understand that and take care. If at all we want to get in with something, some such plan or something, we need to consult other people and take their advice before we commit to making any kind of a decision in such matters. Now, as we said, Rama did not blindly give in to Sita's desire. Why did he follow that deer? Because he thought, if, as Sita said, it is just a normal deer, I will capture the deer and bring it. If not, I will at least get the deer skin. And if it is really Maricha, then anyway it is my duty. I am here to kill all the Rakshasas. So this Maricha has already been troubling us long enough. So it is time that I kill him. So that was the basis on which Rama went. Now, why didn't Rama? He went so far and then he shot the arrow at the deer. What if he had shot the arrow at the deer in that point only, at the ashram itself? Because he is such a great archer, definitely he could have aimed and targeted and hit that deer correctly, right? Okay, Maricha had Mayavi Shakti, but still he could have succeeded in hitting that deer from where he stood. But we know that it is all part of the divine plan, isn't it? Because only when Rama goes further away, then um, Maricha will lead him away. Then Lakshmana will also come there. Then Ravana will come. Then Sita has to be kidnapped. And that Sita's kidnapping is going to pave the way for the destruction of Ravana. So if all that has to happen, then Rama should not be in that spot. And moreover, as we already said in some previous satsang, if as long as Sita is there next to him, Rama has not killed anybody. it is not going to be possible for him to shoot and kill anyone when Sita is standing and watching it. We saw that in case of Viradha. We saw that in case of Kharadushana and all those 14,000 Rakshasas. So now, if Rama has to kill Maricha, it is important that it should be out of sight of Sita only. That is why he did not shoot from that point. Rather, he let the deer take him deep into the forest and then he shot and killed that. So, what happens next? We will see in tomorrow's satsang. For today, let us stop here and express gratitude to the lotus feet of Acharya and Lord Sri Rama for giving us all this knowledge and pray that they will teach us to adopt these learnings in our life also. Mangalam Kosalendraya Mahaniya Gunabdaye Chakravarti Tanujaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam Veda Vedanta Vedyaya Megha Shamalamurtaye Pumsam Mohana Rupaya Punyashlokaya Mangalam Pitrabhaktaya Satatam Bhratrabhisa Sitaya Nanditakhila Lokaya Ramabhadraya Mangalam Srimate Raghuviraya Setu Langita Sindave Jitarakshasarajaya रणधीराय मङ्गलम् मङ्गलाशासनपरैर्मदाचार्यपुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्यैः सत्कृतायास्तु मङ्गलम्. Thank you, everybody. We'll meet again tomorrow and see what happens next. Namaskar.